All right, well, thank you. I wasn't sure how many were going to be here, so I tried to plan for a very large group and then hope that I have enough, and I think I have enough, all right? So we're going to talk about technology, teaching with technology and how you use technology, and we are going to talk a little bit about policy, but only a little bit. So there are a number of principles of technology that I wanted to go over with, or using technology that I wanted to go over with you. And so I thought that what we would do is we would start with some really high-tech information. And this kind of underlines the first principle of the technology, which is it's not about the tech, unless it really is. Okay? And you'll see what the distinction is there in just a minute. But, so this is what we're covering today. Okay? It's not about the tech. Sometimes the best thing to do is to just use low-tech solutions. What often happens is when you pull out technology, technology can be distracting. And if the technology doesn't actually further the objectives or the pedagogical method that you're trying to use, then the technology is destructive to what you're trying to accomplish, not helpful to what you're trying to accomplish. So one of the most effective forms of technology is this, a whiteboard. And 80% of the time, this is, and paper, and something, this is what is really, really necessary. And using something more than that may end up actually being distracting and destructive. Sometimes technology can be helpful, but sometimes it's bad. So that's the first thing, is it's not about the tech.
So I'm very visual spatial learner, so I assume everyone looks through the same lens I look through. And that can be dangerous, I imagine.
It can be.
But because I like visual spatial things, I like to see things. I think PowerPoints are great, but...
PowerPoint is great, but PowerPoint has limitations. And
talk about that. Talk about limitations.
Okay, so PowerPoint, you've all heard of death by PowerPoint, right? And you've all probably...
I'm not sure I've heard of it, but I'm sure it's happened in my class.
You've probably suffered death by PowerPoint. And what it is it's a terminology. When Microsoft invented PowerPoint, people thought, hey, this is great, this is fabulous, because what it does is it prevents you from having to do all of this in advance. And this takes time to write all of this. And there's some drawbacks in this. What are some of the drawbacks of using a whiteboard?
Kids mess up.
Okay, sometimes kids mess up. What else is a drawback to using a whiteboard?
You have to turn your back.
My back is to you. And that's not always the best way to deal with that. And especially if I'm trying to do something interactive. I mean, I can draw a map here, all right, and then I can put in the appropriate information that I need. Okay, and put in, here's my Persian fleet, all right, and here I've got, and I can even use color so that I can help here with the, some of the information that I need to do. So here we've got the Persian army, and here they're going like this, and here we've got the Athenian army, and they are divided into 3 different groups. And then as they begin to withdraw, we get one of the great battles. Anybody recognize this battle?
No. No.
No. Battle of Marathon. Okay, one of the turning points of history. Very important battle. This is good, but it takes time to do that, and that may not be what I'm going for. Because as I write things, but on the other hand, it also might be exactly what I'm going for, because in this way I can develop the story, because as the Persians as the Athenians pulled back, okay, the Persians moved forward, and they moved into this space. And then we can talk a little bit about what it was the Greeks were thinking, how they were planning. They knew that the Persian army outnumbered them 2-1. And as a result of that, they chose the terrain in order to limit the numerical advantage that the Persians had. And as they come forward, then we have the attack from the flanks of the Athenian army, and that caused the Persians to be decimated. They also selected an area where they couldn't retreat to the north, and they couldn't retreat to the south. And as a result of that, the Persian army lost, reportedly, more than 10,000 soldiers, and the Athenians lost fewer than 500. Fabulous
Sounds like a Book of Mormon story.
storytelling, and this is a technique. You can also do, if you want to take the technology up a level, you take a page out of Jared Cornell's book, where you take and you make things that can be out of paper, and you put magnets on them, and then you can just move them around. All right?
I have no feedback for you because I'm 7th grade, but they remember these lessons.
remember that.
In 5th grade.
They remember this. Now, there are some drawbacks, and that's that I have to draw this. And there's already been a joke about my drawing ability, okay, been made today. I'm kidding. And I am not the greatest artist in the world, and so my drawing ability is limited. So sometimes it's better to get something else. But in a PowerPoint, you lose some of that interactivity. And that's one of the drawbacks of technology, is you have to make sure that it's accomplishing what you need it to accomplish. Because remember, it's not about the tech, it's about the learning.
No,
I was just going to comment, for those of you that struggle with drawing, another thing you can do is find an image of it and project it. Using an old technology, your project, what do you call those? The projector.
Overhead.
Or you could use actually new technology to do that, which I'm going to show you in just a second.
Draw it on your board, and then you can manipulate all the parts.
Okay? All right, so it's not about the tech. Now, sometimes it is about the tech, though. And so I have a handout for you. Where did I put those? I think I put them back here in the back. Some of you have already seen this before. Like I said, I wasn't sure who was going to come to this and who wasn't. But sometimes it is about the tech. Sometimes what you need is you need the students to learn the tech so that it can help them. Now, this is something that I provide for my students along with a series of demonstrations on how to use this particular technology. This is very advanced technology called Word. Okay, some of you have heard of it. Some of you might have used it.
It's like brand new.
But like most technology, there are features and capabilities of the technology that are taken for granted. And I try to teach my students how to use those features. So styles are something in Word that will help them once they know how to do them. So another important part of using technology is you can't make assumptions about the student's ability to use the technology. That's something that I've done many times. Because the students that we have, they are from the digital generation, right? They're digital natives. They're supposed to be able to navigate the internet without difficulty. They actually can't. They are, in some respects, babes in the woods, and they don't understand what's going on, and yet we continue to persist in this idea that because they're young, they know how to use technology. And so instead, if the technology is itself an objective, we have to use the technology and show them how to properly use the technology. And in doing that, we use all of the things that we normally would. We scaffold it in all of the ways that we would normally scaffold it. We take them through the process. We first show them, we have them do it, and then we evaluate whether or not, or to what extent they have learned and developed the usage of that particular technology. So this is something, these are all low-tech solutions to begin with that I'm showing you. How to give them something. It's a process that shows them exactly how to set up an MLA document in Word using styles.
Which is required for your class.
Which is required for
and
my class.
It's required for senior thesis
It is, well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that this year.
I think we're staying with Chicago,
Same with Chicago, so, but the,
but style sheet.
It's all their papers, 9 through, well, 7, I think, 7 through 11, all their school papers are MLA.
MLA.
but my objective in teaching them to use styles is not, this is how you set up an MLA document. My objective
And
is,
the technology.
how do you use styles? Because once you know how to use styles, it doesn't matter what format you're having to do it in, you can format the document to work in any way. I sat down with Ty, was it last week or the week before? To go over using styles again. Because he was trying to do a document and it was a big document. And he wanted it all to be uniform. And so there was, one of the lessons that I try to teach my students is a small investment of time upfront has great dividends on the back end, as you don't have to worry about formatting issues because you can change them globally and you can make them all uniform. And so, again, using the tech properly. All right. Okay, so it's not about the technology unless it is. Okay? All right, actually, I have all of this down here for you on a document. So I did this just as a point. But this does create another thing that we can use our technology for, and that's that I always have my students, now they don't all have cell phones, but I do use my whiteboard a lot. So what do I ask them to do if they have concerns? Take a picture.
Yeah.
Okay, now I teach them to take notes, and I want them to take notes, but sometimes, you know, like I have all of my homework reminders and everything up here when we were talking about organization. At the end of the class, they will raise their hand and they will say, can I take a picture of this? And I will say yes. And they'll take out their phones, and I'll have 5 or 6 students at the front of my class with their phones taking a picture of the whiteboard. It's a great, easy way to record what happened for when they need the exact thing. Now, they're supposed to have taken their notes during class, so this is not a do this instead of taking notes. This is do this in addition to taking notes. Okay? So, basic technology. Easy tech. All right, technology. What's some of your frustrations with technology?
When it doesn't work.
When it doesn't
And
work.
I don't know how to fix it. But I'm special because I'm right across the hall from my TV. I'm sorry.
So you scream help and they're right there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, just going along with that, I think sometimes trying to stream a video, trusting that it'll,
Streaming a video.
Download
Okay,
it.
so
versus downloading it. I always try
suggestion
to
number 1
download
is
it.
never try to stream anything. And there's some reasons why. Well, wait a minute, they told us not to use words like never and shouldn't.
Go ahead.
It is advisable not to use to stream video. Okay, so we'll talk about that. So I'll show you how to get around that in just a minute. What
I
else?
just download it.
When we can't get tech.
When we can't get
Oh,
tech,
Yeah, when our 2 little
You're
carts
saying
are
that?
taken.
the
Every
2
time I
parts are
want the card, it
taken.
says hasn't.
Oh,
And I'm taking them this year because we have an online student newspaper and we need
Yeah.
those carts in journalism every time they meet. But
how many of you have a projector in your room? Raise your hand if you have a projector in your room. How many of your projectors are wireless in your rooms? Is there anybody that doesn't have a
How do I
wireless
know if it's
projector?
wireless?
No wires.
Oh,
Okay.
you know.
All right, let me show you something.
Because I'm looking up there and I see wires on yours.
No.
No. We used to have to plug it in the wall and it was a mess.
All right, so one of the things about tech is you want to have a plan B. Plan B is what do you do when things go wrong? So what if my computer isn't working? What if I can't get it to connect? A lot of times there are other ways to do the same thing. So I went home last night and I whipped this little device up. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is why is it trying to connect already? Okay, that's why. I'm going to stop.
Is this an object lesson how sometimes it doesn't work?
No, this is what happens when I make an assumption and then the assumption is incorrect. So it was connecting to the right one and then I told it to stop, and so I shouldn't have. I should have just let it go forward. It says it's connecting me now, but I'm not sure it's going to. But this is what happens when you have a problem. You go to plan B. Okay? You always want to have a plan B. And the other thing that you want to do is you want to understand how your technology works and what are the basic things that you can do to fix it. It's great if you're across the hall from IT, but sometimes it takes
They're
5,
not always there though.
10 minutes to go down, to go up to IT. So Joanne, can I have you stand up?
Yes.
And so what you want to do is you want to have some basic knowledge on what's going on. And then oftentimes it is as easy as unplugging something
What was that?
and plugging it back in. That's the wireless receiver.
See, so my projector doesn't have that, so is it possible?
So yours is wired?
Is it wired?
My HDMI out to the wall, I have to plug it.
Okay, so if you have one of those, talk to IT and get one.
Mine's wired.
Another
Do you
option,
have one of those little things like that?
another option is you all have a $250 classroom setup budget.
$100.
$100, is it just $100?
For us.
We'll tell them it's $250.
I never spend mine, so I really don't know what it is.
I'll take yours.
I bought one of these for my wife's classroom because she has wires in her classroom. And
How much was it?
it was $16.
So are you able to connect any wireless device to your projector with this then?
Pretty much.
So an iPad, a laptop? Well, this will be fun to try this year.
Okay, so what you can do with these is you can connect most devices. So here's my, this is my tablet. Okay, and with this I can do a number of things. So I can now, I've got it turned around. Make sure that I have it right here. And what I have now here is a
Overhead projector?
overhead projector, document camera, whatever you want to talk about. Okay.
You guys, IT does have a few document cameras that you can check out.
Alright.
I'll be checking one out permanently throughout the year because I use this a lot. A lot.
And now the advantage is that again, this is still old school. This is not much better than different than a projector, but it gives me some advantages to do some things that I couldn't do with a regular projector. If any of you use those overhead projectors, they're difficult. Document cameras are nice, but they're actually 20-year-old technology. And so they're a little bit difficult to do with some things. And some of the technology that is currently available is significantly better for a number of reasons. So for example, here what I can do is I can take a picture of this particular whatever I have here, and now I can write on it, and so I can talk about how things need to be changed and begin to do some other kinds of things with this where now we're interactive. So if you can think about this, how are these some ways that could be utilized in your individual class?
So you're actually now writing on your screen?
I'm writing on my screen.
I take my music theory assignments, they turn in and stick it under there and then mark.
Their
it.
notation.
Yep.
You could say, look, this progression of these chords, you've got some problems with this. This doesn't follow a proper progression. What else could you do?
I have my students, like one will read a myth and the other will sit and draw the myth.
Okay, very good. You could draw something. They could illustrate it as someone else is going along. Good. What else?
I use the document camera quite a bit, but one thing I do is if I'm giving full class instruction on how to go through a document, if I do it like this, rather than stand up and just talk to them, this is a lot more helpful.
Okay, again, it goes
I
back to
can
that.
underline, I can circle, I can
Interactivity.
emphasize.
And unlike with this, my back isn't to my students. Now I can face my students and I can talk to them this way. I can look up. And the other thing I could do hi. Good, good. Okay, so we can now, this becomes more interactive where the student now can be participatory. The student doesn't have to come up here. How many of you had that experience in high school or elementary school where you had to come to the front of the board and do something? That's hard. Reducing that a little bit by having it be done from your seat could alleviate some of that stress. Okay? And we can do all kinds of things with this kind of technology. Let me show you something else here. I've got a couple of things here. So here is an image. Okay? Satellite image of, anybody recognize this one?
Saudi Arabian
I was gonna
Peninsula.
say, is it Egypt?
That's Egypt and Red Sea.
This is the Nile River,
Oh, yeah.
right?
It's also the Saudi Arabian Peninsula.
So we can do a lot of things here with this. So I can begin to zoom in here, all right? And now what I can also do is, as this comes about, is we can begin to talk about why this might be called a delta.
Yep.
Okay? And what is significant about a delta? As we look at this, I can see from this image, this is Egypt, why it is that life existed along the Nile River.
Water distribution.
It's pretty obvious in this photograph as to why that in Egypt you see cities that exist only along the river. Why is it that the delta is so green and the rest of it is so brown?
Better water distribution.
Okay, we can talk about natural barriers. So if we're talking about civilizations, what we might talk about is about right here is the first cataract. Why did that create a natural barrier to the development of this civilization? It's because the primary form of transportation for these people was what? It's the river. If you have a cataract, what do you have to do? No, they didn't have cars. You get out and you carry it around the cataract and then you put it back in the river. Unless you build something else. What? A lock or some kind of system to raise boats. And so, you know, we could talk about how the Egyptians were the first people to dam a river. We can talk about, you know, biology could do all kinds of things with this. You could do things with geography, all right? Let's take a look at something else. So here's a map that's near and dear to my heart, all right? Here we have the Shire. I pointed that out, all right? And here we can talk. This is geography that the students don't know,
Where's your name?
Oh, yeah.
okay? Yeah, Roland was looking at this just earlier. So this is geography that the students don't know. And yes, there are maps in the book, but at the back of the book. Well, I can talk about this, how that, you know, Boromir comes from down here, and he makes his way all the way up here. The hobbits start from here, they go down to here, then they go up to here, and then they come across to here, and then they go around like this, and then they come all the way over to here. And so we could talk about the different versions, or the journey, and why it is that Tolkien had them do this, and what this has metaphorically, or where they are. Because a lot of times, they don't really understand where they are. And with the technology, it's easier to do these kinds of things. Does that make sense? Okay. Another possibility. So here is what I was talking about. This is the Battle of Marathon. All right? So I have two maps on this particular one. The first one here is to give more of an overview where I can show them, okay, here's Athens right here. Marathon is right there. So that helps them put it into context. Then we can go over and we can look at the detail of the battle. We can see the marsh. We can now say that the Athenian army was back in here. You know, I can change color and we can put the Persian army in. The Persian army was back along this way. And then again, what we can do is with these kinds of things, oops,
Make it visual.
I can then move things around as well. And this is something I can't do on a whiteboard. And as I'm doing these things on a whiteboard, it begins to get too much and I have to erase. And here, though, I can move things around. I can selectively do different things. I can move it back to where it was.
Can you just erase it?
So I just erased some things or undid things, which is one of the advantages of a computer.
Which app is this again?
This one is called, I honestly don't know what it's called. It's called Squid.
So you have to download these maps and things for this to work.
Yeah. So I can download them. But I can download any PDF. So for example, this is the new teacher training manual. This is a diagram on the 4R'ing process.
That you created, right?
I actually made that diagram, yes.
That's pretty cool.
And then, but we can go to other things and we can go in here. Now imagine if you were reading with your students about something and you wanted to highlight something. You can go in here now and you can highlight the appropriate portions for them and say, okay, this is the things. So if you're working on annotation or you're wanting to do some close reading exercises or you want to point out a particular passage, you can always do it by saying page 473, third paragraph, starts with this, and then you've always got what? The 4 kids on the back that are saying, where are we? What page was that again? And what that does is that takes you out of the flow of what you're talking about. It's to have the ability to utilize the technology that's available in order to pull them in.
So your tablet has to be a touchscreen, right? So we can use our.
We have to build one of these little gadgets.
Yeah, you could make this out of cardboard.
You could make this out of cardboard, and you could sell them.
Cardboard and tape,
I'll buy one.
hot glue. There are ways to do this. This took me about an hour and a half to make last night. I just put it together. This is actually for my wife. This is not for me.
Oh.
My wife's classroom, like I said, she has a document camera that's all wired, and in order to use the document camera, she has to stand in the corner, and she doesn't want to do that. With this, I can not only be here, but I can be back there.
Did you take the...
Which is another important thing, is that when you are using your tech, you want to be aware of access limitations and accommodations. You want to make sure that your students are using the tech wisely. Sometimes the best way to do that is to be behind them.
Proximity.
No, why behind them?
Well, because you can see.
Because you can see their screens.
That is proximity. You're standing behind
Yes,
them and watching.
it is proximity.
Yeah.
But you're able to see their screens, and that is the key, is that you are able to see what they have on their laptops. So if you've got the computer lab, and you've given them an assignment, by the way, don't ever just let them say, just get on the internet and find something. Give them specific direction, and if you're dealing with younger students, you may even say, go to this particular website and read these particular things.
Can I ask about that? I tried to use that once last year, and half of the kids couldn't log in, or there were problems with the computers, and so I never did it again because I just thought that was more work than it was worth.
No, you work through that.
Okay, so that's part of this and this. So what I did last year, seniors, senior thesis, is they didn't turn in a document to me all year. They turned in only digital files. Now, you would think seniors, easy, no problem, you just tell them what to do and they'll do it, right? No. We spent 3 class periods talking about how you get to the digital Dropbox on Veracross. They all had the laptops, we went through the process of them logging into Veracross, them finding a thing, them typing up an assignment. It basically said their name and I have done the assignment, that's all that they had to write. Saving it as either a Word file and a PDF file, and then uploading them to the Dropbox. It takes time. If you want your students to use technology, you have to invest time to teach them how to use the technology.
Okay.
Chris, once I get over that hurdle and they're all logging in, and if I'm doing a project and we need those laptops like once or twice a week, they work through that.
Okay.
And they're not gonna be one of that kid that comes in and for 20 minutes can't work because they can't log on. Plus I tell them, make sure you've got a safe place to put your login information if you're gonna forget it. Because they think they can remember, and some of them, they can't.
So, you know, other
So-
programs that are readily available. So here's Kindle, you can get books on that, you can,
Can I ask a question? Was there any rhyme or reason to the height of what you constructed there? Does it have to be up a certain number of inches? Or was it just, you just guessed and that's what you did?
I didn't just guess, but it was close to that. What I did is I went home last night and I took a tape measure and I held my phone out like this and turned on my camera and saw how high I needed it to be so that it didn't interfere.
Right.
And then I took the tape measure and I measured that, and then I made it approximately that distance.
It was
Which is
about
what?
14 inches high.
14.
This particular one is a little over 12 inches. And then I just made a little cradle for this to go in.
You made that in an hour?
Yeah.
Wow.
Come on, hour and a half.
Now he's just bragging.
This is one of my hobbies. Okay. So, but like I said, you can make something like this
Scrap metal.
out of wood that you bought. You go down to Home Depot and you buy those 1x2 strips and you create something like this, and you just stick it over the top of it, and it's just a place to put your phone, place to put whatever. I made this nicer than it needed to be because it's for my wife. So, all right, does that make sense?
Is that maple?
No, this is actually knotty alder. So,
Well, tell it to repent. It's not-
N-O-T-T. All right. Let me show you another form of technology that I wanted to quickly show you some other things that you could do. Before I do that, let's go to something else. Okay. Can show? Okay. So like I said, you always have to have a plan B. So another thing that I was thinking about is, how many of you like to do reviews or test preparation or test taking skills or things of that nature? Okay? So there are things that you can do to make this. I just think I connected to somebody else's. There we go. To do this. So I got recently, because I'm doing an ACT prep class this year, I got a bunch of flashcards, okay, Barron's, and they have questions on them. And I thought to myself, you know what would be really cool is to be able to at the beginning of every class, is to just do some quick little multiple choice questions at the beginning of a class in order to test it, in order to remind them how to do that. So here we have a question. Okay, the results displayed in tables 1 and 2 imply that smokers with the greatest percentage of parents who smoke will most likely smoke an average of how many cigarettes per day? Right, what's the correct answer? And we got 20 seconds for this.
I'm trying to figure out the tables.
Right, now this is one of the skills that they have to know in order to do well on the ACT. They need to know how to read a set of data. And so this is the kind of thing that they will do. All right? Anybody come up with the answer yet?
So with one parent smoking, it's percent
Well,
of
the ones
parents.
that's either A, B, C, or D, that's what they get a choice.
Yeah,
I just
there are
noticed
four.
that.
There are four questions, four options.
Those little kids. Yeah.
Parents who smoke will smoke that much.
So I can't see the answers.
Okay, you can't see, I don't, and that's what I could do is and I didn't do this yesterday, and I should have, I should have taken a photograph of the back side of the card as well. But instead, what I did was took these, and this is the first time I've tried it, which is another thing. You want to practice, practice, practice whatever you're doing and making sure that it really works. But then you look at various things. Let's go to something else that may be a little more.
Mice.
Okay, mice observed and in diet at foxes. Based on the information figure, the number of mice observed will be closest to what number in 1985? D is the correct answer, right?
Yeah, it did.
50. You can see the trend lines moving down, right? Okay. We'll skip the math since no mathematicians came. Here's the English one. What's the correct answer to this one? Wonder whether the weather will improve. No change or a punctuation change?
Change.
It's a statement.
Oh, no change.
Weather.
It's not a question.
B, it's not a question, it's a statement. Okay, so these are some of the skills that they have to have for taking the test. Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
You know, and Ryan and I were talking about that, weren't we? Yeah, that my 8th graders will be testing. When do they test?
Could you just
November?
scan those in using
November?
the printer?
You can. The reason why I might not want to scan them is because you don't get the color. And on the charts, the color can be important.
Oh.
And the same is true with some maps. Sometimes the color is important.
We don't have
Yes.
a color scanner. Does the color printer not scan?
I don't know if the color printer has a scanner on it, does it?
I think you can.
It doesn't scan color. The big one only does black and white. All right, there was another, any of you played Kahoot?
Yeah.
Okay?
With my students.
So it's another kind of a way of using technology, and I was going to play one, but we're running out of time. It was on the Declaration of Independence. We were going to see how well you know that document. And but what it is everyone logs in. Take out their phone and they log in, and they don't have to have an app. They don't even have to identify who they are. So you could give some rules to this, because what it's going to do is it displays who's winning. So it's a kind of a competition, and you can set multiple choice questions, and you know it's displayed on the screen, and there's some funky music that plays while you do it.
It's a lot of fun.
It's fun, and it can be a jumping off point, because you don't have to go from question to question to question. You can go to the question, reveal the correct answer, and then have a discussion
Or an activity.
about why it is that one answer is superior to another answer. And if you're clever, or maybe not so clever, what you've selected as the right answer in the computer could be the wrong one, and then you can have a debate among the students as to why it is that they were really right. So it can be a jumping off point in order to create the discussion. Ryan, how do you use it?
Well, again, was intending on using it a lot more. I was going to do pre-assessments and kind of see where we are and then let them. But it came down to mostly access devices for freshmen. Most of them aren't packing and don't have laptops, and the ability to have a dedicated cart is, yeah. So that I didn't wind up using as much as I wanted to.
So an option for that would be what? Well, no, because
No,
they
clickers.
don't necessarily carry their cell phones.
And my kids don't.
Clickers is another way to get around the technology thing. It's a reverse, where they have essentially a QR code that they hold up with their response, and that's a better way to go.
Quizlet's another one that does similar kinds of things. So there's a number of these kinds of programs. You could get the mobile lab if you were planning this for an activity. You could also do it in teams. You ratchet the complexity of the questions up a bit. You make them higher risk questions, and you have them done as a team, where they have to. Now you're getting to more of what Tess is talking about, where you have a group activity, where the group has to sit down and they have to make a decision, and then, because once they answer, you can't go back on Kahoot.
And then you put the pot in the middle of the floor and say, add something to the pot, and the winning team, you get everything. They put money, they put candy, they put their lunch in.
Promoting gambling?
No, it's a gift. It's a gift. No, whoever wins gets everything.
It's rule.
It's the
That's
lunch.
the part that's not gambling. One person wins it all, that's the part that's not gambling.
And the parents email the school, how come my child didn't have his lunch today? Well, because he lost.
He lost. He lost.
That's funny.
All right. Let me just quickly go over the school's policies, because these are things that we do need to be aware of. This is everything that I did talk about, as well as what I was planning to talk about. We didn't have time to talk about. There are two policies that are very, very important. Policy number 22, section 22 in the employee handbook, and section 34 of the employee handbook talk about technology usage. You want to make sure you understand that. It's always best to download video and edit it before you try to show it. Edit it for length, edit it for content. You know, we all have the desire to not do anything wrong. Brigham was showing a video once, I remember. He was showing Gandhi. And you know, Gandhi's a 3-hour movie. It's long. And there is one word right in the middle of Gandhi that he was supposed to take out. Okay? So he's there, you know, it's getting close, it's about 5 minutes away, he's ready. What happens?
Distraction.
A distraction. A parent came to the door.
Oh,
Board
So-
came to the door.
Oh. Brigham goes over to the door, he's talking to the parent, and what happens?
Oh, the word.
The word. The school has software, and if you don't know how to use the software, we also have access to this wonderful teaching program called YouTube, which will show you how to do virtually anything. In fact, that's how I learned how to make things like this. Entirely through YouTube.
There's a site too called SafeShare TV, I think it's called, and you can run your YouTube video through that and it will strip the ads.
Yes. But you want to look into those kinds of things, because you never know what's going to pop up on the side or underneath, or what recommended videos that YouTube is pushing, and you don't know what those thumbnails are going to look like. And so don't ever stream, besides the fact that when you try to stream it, inevitably it's going to stop halfway through and while it buffers. And it's just frustrating for you, it's frustrating for the students, because they're not able to do